Hi, my name is Benny Johnson. As some of you know, I've been struggling with addiction. However, I decided to change my life and went into recovery. I've started this podcast 90 Days Clean, and I want to take you along in my journey. What does lie ahead of me? Let me be frank, I do not know. Will I ever drink again? I do not know. This is how Stairway to Redemption was born. It is my search for answer in a real-time process of what is going to work for me. It is then my aspiration to help you figure out what's going to work for you. It is our journey together. Hey, good morning, guys. Benny here from Stairway to Redemption. Welcome to our brand new series, Recovery Study, where I will be analyzing and commenting on self-help books about addiction and recovery. In this first episode, we're gonna start with a book that's really dear to me called REWIRED, a bold new approach to Addiction and Recovery by Erica Spiegelman. How did I came across this book? It was when I was inpatient, when I was in rehab inpatient back in August of last year of 2022. One of the counselor introduced us to this book, and we're reading excerpts of it during during our workshop. And by the way, I would like to give her a shout out to Justine for introducing me to this book. And once I graduated and got out, I decided to buy the book. And so I've been, I read it. And the advantage of this book, basically Rewired is not just any self-help book. It doesn't abide by one solution fits all or any cookie cutter method, but rather try to make us do a deep dive and evaluation into our relationship with 10 core principles deemed necessary to live a sober life. Those principles are authenticity, honesty, evolution, solitude, time management, self-care, healthy relationships, compassion, and love. So what I've planned for you guys in this series is to go over each principle, describing what the author, Erica, is saying, her view on her position on it, and talk about it myself. The advantage of this book is at the end of each chapter, based on those principles, also come a little book workshop, a workshop that you can ask yourself questions. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna answer those questions how they apply to me, and hopefully you could do the same exercise at home. So let's start with the introduction before I dive in the first principle. In the introduction, Erica goes over briefly, gives a description to each of the principles, like the one I mentioned earlier: authenticity or honesty, evolution, solitude, time management, self-care, healthy relationship, and gratitude. I will read you the definition she has for authenticity in this one. The word authentic is a combination of Latin and Greek words meaning coming from the author, and one who acts independently. Sorry. I interpret this as you are the author of your life. It also means of undisputed origin and accurate, trustworthy, reliable. When your authentic voice can be trusted, there's no need to look elsewhere for guidance. No guru, therapist, teacher, or best-selling writer can give you better answers than the ones you find within. There can be no permanent recovery without an awareness of oneself as unique in all the world. And because no two people will ever think, feel, or live exactly alike, the authentic voice will always be more accurate, more informed to your situation than any cookie cutter recovery program. And I highlighted this part. In this way, you can begin to think of recovery as an adventure of deep self exploration, a journey to your core. How powerful is that? Alright, let's diving in chapter 1, the chapter on authenticity. I like how Erica starts her chapter. She usually uses quotes from scholars or philosophers to that are in relationship with the theme or like the principle we're learning. So there's one that I really like. She said it's from Marianne Williamson. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? I really like this quote because I can identify with this one, especially if you heard me in my previous episode in some previous, you will know that like I suffer from survivor guilt sometimes, and I mean not sometimes, and I've trouble sometimes accepting how talented I am, which I don't want to toot my own horn, but yes, that quote really, I can really identify with this quote. So the chapter on authenticity start with the description of what a bottom is in addiction. Some bottoms are really spectacular. So bottoms are like what she described as silent. A silent bottom is basically where you reach your bottom, but it didn't have to be losing the house, losing the job, losing like the husband or wife, the relationship, being in jail. Some bottoms are like less dramatic than that. And she talks about herself in her real recovery in this segment. I'm quoting, as Erica, I myself experienced this kind of silent bottom. An unbearable darkness had crept into my soul, and like a psychic cancer, it was slowly killing me. I could no longer cope with the discrepancy between my values, what I knew to be right and true in this life, and the way I was living. That quiet, small voice of truth inside me could not be extinguished or destroyed, no matter how hard I tried to drown it out. When I finally realized the futility of fighting my inner voice, I broke down and wept. From that moment, things became easier as I began to live in harmony with my deepest self rather than in constant internal conflict. End of quotation. The voice of the authentic self, basically. It means like listen to your gut, stop lying to yourself. That's how I understand it. And yes, personally, if I were to describe the kind of bottom I had, I would say like I had a mid bottom, like not totally spectacular. I did lose a job. I didn't lose the house. I didn't go to jail. I did lose a lot of relationships that I deemed valuable. That's for sure. So I would say I I don't know. In my opinion, I had a mid-tier, mid-level bottom. And Erica is totally right when she talks about the voice of the authentic self is a wise and intuitive knowing that reside in all of us like a steady candle flame. I'm quoting her, by the way, guiding the way. It whispers to us in dreams, revealing to us our purpose in life and alerting us when we have done and said something incongruent with our values. That part means a lot because what was my drive, what I consider my driving force in life was to be a better man than the one I was the day before. And I was living by this mantra for like long periods. And I started betraying myself when I started using because it turned me into somebody who was definitely worse than the one who was not in addiction. And you know, coming from like another culture here and under the circumstances I came to a real recap, coming from a third world, learning a new language, graduated with honor, having a fantastic job. I thought I was invincible, let's be honest. And I never thought that addiction could take me down because, man, like I've seen so much worse in my life that I played down. So when I was betraying myself, I was not aware of I was doing so because at the time I was like, well, drugs stuff, I can quit anytime. My mind is way stronger than that. And yeah, that's that hubris that definitely led me to reach my bottom. Also in this chapter, Erica talks about another aspect of authenticity is donning a mask that goes against being authentic. And all of us who are fell into addiction at one point or another don a certain mask. In her case, I'm quoting her right now. She says, I don a mask I would like to call the rock. If someone asked how I was doing, my only reply was fine. I wanted the people around me to be happy, and so I began to place less importance on my own thoughts and emotions, and more the validation I got from pleasing others. Family members remarked on how loving and caring I was, but no one seemed to notice that I was fast becoming a contortionist, bending over backward and forward to accommodate other people's wishes. End of quotation. That's like the perfect case of people pleasing here, which is quite common in people who are in addiction. Like me for myself also, as I did indulge in people pleasing. I remember vividly that I didn't had any boundaries when I was living in my apartment for people to come at any hour of the night or the day because in my opinion I was, oh, if they come that late that means like they must be in need of something or they're going through something. I'll get out of my way to try to help them or just listen to what they have to say because like who shows up to somebody at 4 a.m. in the morning or 3 a.m. in the morning if they're not really suffering. But meanwhile, it was messing with not only my sleep schedule but also my personal time. I couldn't say no, I don't have the energy or the time to help that person right now. Or I had other obligations. I always thought that no matter what the situations, if you're able to help somebody, you have to as a human being. That's what I always thought. And I still think that to a certain extent. If you can, you should help. But now that can is what needs to be redefined in my opinion. If not only if you can physically help somebody or emotionally help somebody, in addition to that, can I need to evaluate what's going to be the toll on me. And if that toll is too much, then I cannot help that person, even if I can technically answer their need. But if the toll is too big, I should not. And that's what I learned from, the different therapy and this book and inpatient. So to go back to that idea of people pleasing, that term, uh, Erica stipulated in her book that the description of the addict as like an egomaniac who often destroy everything in their path is not totally true. Most of the time, the addict, is like driven to support and help others to the peril of his own safety, well-being, and health. That's totally true. That's what I mentioned earlier about the toll. Like being a capacity of helping other by carrying their need is one thing, but not evaluating properly the toll what is gonna cost you is another. If those two are not checked, then it can lead to discomfort and you not being true to yourself. Now, still in this chapter about authenticity, she talks about the importance of taking off the mask. That like everyone is in the recovery, everyone in addiction is wearing. All right, so let's go back to take the part where Erica talks about taking off the mask. She warns us that many of these masks that we are wearing while in addiction are unconscious, and until they are explored, they eventually surrendered, the addict will remain at risk of relapse. She adds that this false persona can become so habitual that it fuses with the personality and become impossible to shed without help. That's true, because similarly to Erica here, my mask was the savior mask, the hero mask, another term for that. And yeah, sometimes when you deep in addictions, your persona merge with your personality, and it's impossible to distinguish which is which. Those masks that are ruining our chances at happiness, repelling intimacy, and fueling our need to drink and use. Because what used to be, I believe the way I understand it is, what used to work to be a coping mechanism when you were overwhelmed because you couldn't be authentic to yourself is now a go-to mechanism for you to survive. At least that's how I felt about it. Subsequently, the author Erica talks to us about the benefit of being authentic. I'm reading this passage, quote, "There's something magnetic and unstoppable about a person who lives according to the dictates of the heart instead as a slave to society's demands. Furthermore, a person who lives authentically has nothing to fear. There are no skeleton in the closet, no ticking time bomb waiting to explode." That part is so important to me because living in fear of there's no fear of being found out when you're authentic to yourself because you are you, right? You are your true self. You don't suffer from imposter syndrome anymore. You take that mask off, and there's a certain confidence aura that people who are true to themselves have. And now, how do you cultivate authentic relationship? That's where she moved on next. The manifestation of inauthenticity, you need to detect that first. Is there a certain inappropriate behavior I'm tolerating in order to keep the peace? That's a very important question that she asked. Me personally, I noticed that I tend to not I tend to keep quiet when people I do not care about or do not respect for some reason. I do not care about. I have little respect for. Tell me something that's wrong or erroneous about me. Like, I do not correct them because in my head I tend to make like a cost analysis about what it's going to cost me to correct them, why I'm going to get angry, and I tend not to argue with people I don't have little respect for. And not that I don't believe I should go fight and try to correct that everyone that wrong about me, or I, to a certain extent, I do not care. But what it led me to do is to, in order to have peace of mind, to let others believe what they want. And sometimes there is, I think, a certain balance between not caring about what people say about you for sure, but also not letting everybody walk over you. And me, I was probably in the latter, because in my mind, I was like, do I really want to argue with those idiots? Not, that I think that everybody is an idiot, definitely not. But sometimes people were so off in my intention that I saw it sometimes as using it as an advantage. Instead of giving them my true self, I could use the fact that they think something completely differently. They think something completely different and at the opposite spectrum of what I'm truly am, as a form of, I don't know, strength or hiding or something like that. Later in the paragraph, she said that transforming into an authentic human being can be every bit as turbulent, surprising, and challenging as getting physically sober. That I totally agree with it, because like, if you take a bad habit of putting that persona, that mask all the time, it becomes almost second nature to do so. So nothing surprising here. Later, she talks about the ways of connecting with your authentic self. Obviously, the most common one is journaling, meditation, and solitude also are excellent ways to amplify your intuition. So basically, how to cultivate that intuition, being alone and in solitude, to know yourself a bit more. I totally get that. She concludes the paragraph with the chapter actually by saying, lastly, never forget the value in rewarding yourself for your effort. You have taken a huge first step toward a beautiful, lasting recovery, and you deserve to be recognized. Just for today, do one kind, healthy thing for yourself. That's basically the end of this chapter, since you need to be authentic with yourself. That is first thing to do. And yeah, she rewards that. Alright. Now that I basically went over the chapter, here's the workshop. Questions for exploration on authenticity. Alright guys, we reached the questions for the workshop questions for the authenticity chapter. The first question is, in what areas of my life do I like authenticity? I will say in my case that I did like authenticity in how to trust my gut feeling, because since the gut feeling that about people or situation, I didn't have empirical data or like evidence that I was right or wrong, I will suppress that gut feeling. Coming from being a very analytical guy, scientific guy, I will sometimes, even if I couldn't explain why I had that gut feeling, I would be like, why should I just trust it? It's just a gut. I don't have the evidence that I'm right or wrong on that. So I will suppress it. But something that I noticed in my recovery is trust the energy that you feel from other people. If you feel a bad vibe from somebody, even if you don't have the evidence that they're walking funny around you or something, it doesn't cost much to be cautious. And you will notice that most of the time, or a lot of time, your gut feeling is right. There doesn't need to be like evidence, like, like scientific evidence or like a forensic evidence for you to be right sometimes when you follow your gut feeling. So I definitely wasn't authentic when I was ignoring that gut feeling of mine. All right. Next question. In what ways am I a people pleaser? I was definitely a people pleaser when I was when I used to live in my apartment. People will like show up at any hours of the day, of the night, sorry. And in my mind I was like, if they must show up at like this late, that must be that they're going through something, and I can get out of my way to help them and spend time with them. It's not gonna cost me much. But once I did it twice, what I found is it's hard to let her cut off those people or let them know that they're impending on my own energy, on my own rest, on my own, like I'm starting to get burned out. So it's hard to communicate that. So I was definitely a people pleaser, like similarly to this chapter, the rock feeling that Erica was talking about earlier, trying to solve everybody's problem or to be there for everybody's when they're going through tough time. Next question: in what circumstances have I ignored my inner voice? Oh, similar to question 1. I've ignored my inner voice. In some relationship, always giving the people the benefit of the doubt, because I didn't have any evidence that they were like gonna, I don't want to use the word betray me, but that they were not gonna respect my boundaries. So similar to question 1. Next question, what are the consequences of ignoring my inner voice? Regrets, relapse, sometimes guilt, waste of time. Then I have to, and also resentment. Sometimes I hate myself saying like, you see, you should have listened to your gut. You were right all along. And then here's what happened. In what ways have I betrayed myself? So my ideology, my mantra was to be a better person than the day I was before. And it still is. That's my goal in life. Just to be better. Just to try. Be a better person than the day I was before. And addiction definitely led me in the opposite direction. I was becoming worse, distant. I definitely ruined some more and more relationship. Wasn't authentic to myself. What mask do I wear? So we talk about that, the savior mask, because survivor guilt, similar also to the rock. All right, next question. Who are the people who support my authentic self? My friends, that are friends, best friends, family, to a certain extent. I'm not gonna name names. Who are the people who undermine my growth and recovery? Skip that one, not gonna name names. Not important here. What's my life's purpose? Am I fulfilling my destiny, or hiding my dreams? I believe I would like to try to help as many people as I can. I remember a dream of mine was to have a non-profit to teach underprivileged kids how to code. But now I'm thinking of pivoting to helping people who fell into addiction. That should be fun. Or why not both? Like a friend of mine asked me, but how you conciliate those both areas? Who knows? Maybe you guys have an idea. All right. Question number 10. What changes have I noticed since I'm beginning this work? Inner peace, like a bit of serenity. Also, a lot, because I don't have to use, be, an authentic, it's using a lot of energy to go. It's like almost like swimming against the current. not being your natural self and spending so much energy being somebody that you're not. So I definitely start feeling like a bit more at peace with myself and relax, like not under the age or under pressure. Question 11. Have I experienced any signs of withdrawal from authenticity? Yeah. I mean, sometimes still that goes back to the people pleasing thing. I think that I can help when I just need to sit down and realize how much it's going to cost me to help first. And like I said earlier, like even if I can help, by physically, I mean like physically or, financially I can help somebody, I need to evaluate how much it's going to cost me emotionally or mentally. And sometimes I don't, I'm tempted to help without doing that cost analysis. Next question. What have done this week to strengthen my inner voice? What were the results? This week, I made better decision making. Sorry, better financial decision making. Also, that was huge. Also, and what were the result of those? Peace of mind, less stress. Also, because once the decision was made, being confident that you made the right decision, you don't think about the decision or what it will be. You don't stress about it. So that was great. How did I reward myself this week? Bought new boxing gloves since I kickbox a lot. That was fun. Like my old gloves were starting to fall apart lately, so I invested in myself. I invested in gloves, in athletic wear, because when I did my time management, I noticed that after work, I work about 30 hours a week. I noticed that after work I spend about 20 hours at the gym. And so I invested in, I treated myself into better gloves, better shorts, and I need to get better shoes for kickboxing, and training. So things that I like, and yeah, that's it. That was the last question. So coming to the conclusion of reading this first chapter on authenticity, I think it's fun. For this first episode, I think I'm going to release it on the main podcast to give you guys a taste. And probably the series is going to continue on our Patreon. I would rather have all those series on the Patreon so people who want to listen to the podcast won't be overwhelmed by different stuff. So this will be both on the Patreon and on the podcast. All right. What can I say? So guys, one more thing. I might take a break from the Daily Stoic. Taking the Daily Stoic pretty soon. I'm planning a vacation on June. So I'm gonna organize myself. If you don't see me on social media or something, yes, a social media break also would be great. So I will let you know, guys, for sure later. Alright. It was Stairway Benny with Stairways to Redemption, and I will see you guys later.